Caroline stood trembling, the key still glowing faintly in her hand. The chamber was silent now, the oppressive weight of the spirits lifted, but the sense of malevolence in the air remained. She could feel it. The house was still watching, still waiting. Violet, who had been knocked back by the force of the light, scrambled to her feet, her eyes wild with fury. "You fool!" she screamed. "Do you think this changes anything? The ritual was nearly complete. You've only delayed the inevitable." Caroline took a step back, her mind racing. "No, Violet, it's over. The spirits are gone, and the key." Violet cut her off, her voice filled with venom. "The key is still mine. You don't understand the power you're dealing with. This house is more than just a place. It's alive, and as long as the key exists, its influence will never fade." Caroline's grip on the key tightened. She had seen enough to believe that Violet might be right. The key was more than just a symbol. It was a conduit for the dark forces that had been awakened within the house. If she didn't destroy it, Violet could still find a way to harness its power. Caroline's eyes locked onto Violet's. "Why, Violet, why are you doing this? What could you possibly gain from completing the ritual?" Violet's expression twisted into something almost unrecognizable, a mixture of bitterness and desperation. "Do you think I chose this?" she spat. "I didn't want any of it. But this house, it doesn't let go. Once you're inside, once you hold that key, you're bound to it." The Devereaux knew that, and so do I. Caroline's heart sank as she listened to Violet's words. She had suspected that Violet was tied to the house somehow, but she hadn't realized how deep the connection went. "You're trapped," she whispered. "Just like the others." Violet's lips curled into a bitter smile. "Yes, but I've found a way out. The ritual, if completed, can free me from this place. I'll no longer be a prisoner of the house or the key. I'll be free, Caroline." Caroline's stomach twisted at the revelation. "But at what cost? You're willing to unleash something so dangerous just to save yourself." Violet stepped closer, her eyes narrowing. "You don't understand. You think you can escape this place. You think you can just leave and forget everything that's happened here. The house won't let you. It never lets you go. Not without a price." Caroline's breath caught in her throat. She had felt the house's grip tightening around her ever since she arrived, its whispers and shadows invading her every thought. But could Violet be right? Could the house really keep her trapped here forever? The room seemed to grow darker as Violet's words echoed through Caroline's mind. The weight of the house pressed down on her, and for a moment, she felt a surge of panic. But then, her gaze fell on the key, still glowing faintly in her hand, and she knew what she had to do. "Maybe you're right," Caroline said, her voice steady despite the fear clawing at her insides. "Maybe the house won't let me go. But I'm not going to let you unleash whatever evil is tied to this place." Violet's eyes blazed with fury. "You don't have the strength to stop me." Caroline didn't hesitate. She raised the key high above her head and brought it down hard on the edge of the stone altar. A sharp, metallic clang echoed through the chamber as the key struck the stone, and a shockwave of energy pulsed through the room. The ground beneath their feet shook, and cracks began to form in the walls. Violet let out a scream of rage. "No!" She lunged at Caroline, but the force of the key's destruction had already begun to take effect. The chamber trembled violently, and the symbols etched into the walls flickered and died. The altar itself began to crumble, pieces of stone falling away as the power of the key surged through the room. Caroline could feel the house itself reacting to the destruction of its conduit. The dark presence that had haunted her since her arrival was now recoiling, as if in pain. "You don't understand what you've done," Violet cried, her voice desperate. "You've destroyed the only thing keeping the house's power in check." Without the key, before she could finish, a deafening roar echoed through the chamber. The walls buckled, and the ceiling began to collapse. Caroline stumbled backward, her vision blurred by dust and debris. The house was coming apart around them, its very foundation shaking as the dark forces within it were unleashed. Violet's screams were drowned out by the sound of the collapsing stone, and Caroline could barely see through the chaos. She had to get out. She had to escape before the entire house came crashing down. Caroline turned and ran, her legs carrying her up the narrow staircase and through the twisting hallways. The house groaned and creaked around her, the walls trembling as if they were alive. She could feel the weight of the house's malevolent presence pressing down on her, but she pushed forward, refusing to let the darkness claim her. The corridors seemed endless, the air thick with dust and the sound of splintering wood. Caroline's lungs burned, her muscles screaming in protest, but she didn't stop. She couldn't stop, not now. As she reached the main floor, the house let out one final, shuddering groan. The walls buckled, and pieces of the ceiling began to fall. Caroline sprinted toward the front door, her heart pounding in her chest. She could see the light of the fading afternoon beyond the doorframe, a glimmer of hope in the midst of the chaos. With one final burst of energy, she threw herself through the doorway and into the open air. Behind her, the house let out a deafening crash as the roof caved in, sending up a cloud of dust and debris. Caroline collapsed onto the ground, her body trembling with exhaustion and relief. For a long time, Caroline lay on the ground, staring up at the darkening sky. The house was silent now, its once imposing structure reduced to rubble. The oppressive weight of its presence had lifted, but Caroline could still feel the lingering chill in the air, a reminder of the darkness that had been bound to that place. She had survived, but at what cost? Caroline slowly pushed herself to her feet, her body aching from the ordeal. She looked back at the ruins of the house, the crumbled stone and splintered wood a testament to the destruction that had been unleashed. Violet was gone, consumed by the very power she had sought to control. The key was gone too, its destruction having severed the house's connection to the dark forces that had haunted it for so long. But Caroline knew that the memory of what had happened here would never leave her. As she walked away from the wreckage, the wind whispered through the trees, carrying with it the faintest echo of voices, shadows of the past, lingering just beyond the veil of reality. Caroline had escaped the house, but the darkness had left its mark on her. She would carry the weight of the truth with her forever, the knowledge that some doors, once open, can never be fully closed. And though the skeleton key was gone, the haunting presence of the house would live on, a silent reminder of the dangers that lurked in the shadows, waiting for someone else to find the key that should have remained hidden. The sun had barely begun to rise, casting pale, orange hues across the horizon. Caroline stood at the edge of the wreckage, staring at the ruins of the house that had nearly claimed her life. Her heart felt heavy as she looked at the collapsed structure, a maze of stone and splintered wood. The once majestic estate was nothing more than rubble now, but despite its destruction, Caroline knew the battle was far from over. Something still lingered, something far more powerful than the house itself. The air was unnervingly still. The oppressive weight that had haunted the estate was gone, but a new sensation had begun to creep in, a sense of dread that prickled the back of Caroline's neck. It was as if the house had been a mere gateway to something far darker and more dangerous. And that something was still waiting for her. The skeleton key had been shattered, its pieces buried beneath the rubble. But its power wasn't gone. Not entirely. Caroline could feel it, like a low hum vibrating through the earth beneath her feet. The key had unlocked something, a door that should have remained closed. She had to face it. As Caroline stepped closer to the ruins, the air grew colder. Her breath puffed out in white clouds, even though the morning sun had already begun to warm the air around her. She could feel the pull of the house, or rather, the pull of the dark entity that had been tied to it. Violet's warning echoed in her mind. The house doesn't let go. Not without a price. Caroline clenched her fists, her body trembling with both fear and determination. She had survived the house's collapse, but she knew that she hadn't escaped its curse. The key had unlocked something ancient, something malevolent, and it was coming for her. As she approached the ruins, Caroline's eyes were drawn to a single, jagged piece of stone that jutted out from the debris. It was the corner of the altar where the skeleton key had once rested. The symbols etched into the stone were faint but still visible, glowing with a soft, eerie light. Her heart pounded in her chest as she reached out to touch the stone. The moment her fingers brushed against it, a surge of energy shot through her body, sending her stumbling back. The air around her seemed to ripple, and for a brief moment, the world shifted.